Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Shira Lotzar, your host, joined by my colleague Vern Schellinger. We are happy to be here to answer your job search questions on this in the DC area rainy Friday morning. So hopefully you can brighten up your day. So we'd like to just kind of open it up with whoever has a question. Mary, I know that you said that you had one. Would you like to start us off?
Okay, thank you. So the question that they asked me, what are your professional boundaries? And I had I know what my personal boundaries are. So I didn't know what to say at first. So what would you say to
Well,
somebody?
what did you say?
Oh, okay. So I'm trying to think back. I think I gave them an example of if someone asked me to do something that was not part of my job responsibilities, and I felt like it was going beyond the company protocol, I would have to, think about that. Professionally, I would have to probably ask my supervisor for permission. And actually, I would hope that they would have some kind of training in place that would help you to understand what the company boundaries are. Like, for example, this is what we do. And if somebody, if something is beyond your scope, we would ask you to completely say no.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I would imagine that professional, because I've not heard anybody ask that question. So it's an interesting question. I'll start, and Vern, feel free to chime in here.
I have a comment. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, you want to go first, Vern?
Well, my first comment is, and this is, again, if you're in an interview and you get a question, as Mary just said, she said, I didn't, I've never heard that question. I'm not familiar with it. Say that to the interviewer. What do you mean by professional boundaries? Don't be afraid to ask them a question and get them to be more specific.
Yeah.
Which would help you give a better answer. I think Mary's answer sounded pretty good for where you started, Mary. You said, I didn't know what to say. But don't be afraid to ask them, clarify the question. Can you give me some more information? What do you mean? Something like that.
That's actually a really good point, Vern, regardless of the question, right? Because often
regardless of the question.
Yeah, candidates get stumped. I mean, you don't know what the question's going to be. And you're just like, you just got a volley, right? Like they're going to toss you the tennis ball, like, whoa, what do I do with that? It's really a great point, Vern, to ask a clarifying question, which buys you some time and gets you, well, more clarity. In fact, especially if it's a behavioral interview question, one that starts out with something like, describe a time when you this, tell me a time when you that, okay? Those are behavioral questions. And often, and often they're multi-part. So you have to actually remember like the three parts of the question. It's okay to either have them restate it, rephrase it, and or clarify. Say, well, can you share with me, Mr. Employer, the aspect that you're looking for me to focus on? Because I actually could focus on different things. I could come at it from this angle, or that angle. What's most important to you? You could also say, can you give me a little bit of the context of that question, right? Because obviously you're asking it relative to the role, the culture. There's a reason why you're asking me that. Can you give me a little bit of backstory? Now, I wouldn't ask that for every question because that's, but once in a while, they might say, well, okay, sure. So the situation here is yada, da, da, da. And you're like, oh, got it. All right, now you have actual context so you can direct and target your answer. That's what often happens. The challenge with interviewers and candidates is that the interviewer doesn't necessarily know what to ask, doesn't necessarily know how to ask it, and doesn't know how to guide the candidate to answer it in the way that they need. So you're just hearing the question however it lands on you. And then you're like, well, okay, like you sort of pull an arrow out of your quiver, but you don't know really what the target is that you're trying to hit. So they could be looking for one thing, you've been saying something else, and now you're missing the mark. And then they leave the interview thinking, well, they didn't answer the question, right? Well, guess what? They didn't clarify, nor maybe did the candidate actually ask a clarifying question. So don't feel as if you are in a subordinate position.
No.
Don't feel like you just have to sit there, looking pretty with your hands in your lap and just say, okay, lay it on me. You can engage them in a conversation. You are the other side of this equation. They're asking you a question. Listen to what they're asking for. Ask what they're asking for. Get an understanding so that you can thoroughly answer the question. And by the way, you're going to have questions for them too. And sometimes when they ask you a question, that could lead to you asking them a question. And that's okay to play a game of tennis as opposed to a game of racquetball. Okay, typically interviews are racquetball. It's just like you're the wall and they just hit the ball, right? But when you do tennis, it's equal. And you're getting to know them as much as they're getting to know you. And you're coming at this as a marriage, right? Not where they're here and you're here, but you're equal. So I just want to empower all of you to really be thoughtful when you're asked anything. Vern made an excellent point, don't just take it and go, I don't know what to say. Engage them.
Yeah.
Is that helpful, Mary? Cool.
Yeah.
And by the way, just
I think it's very helpful to clarify, like you said at the beginning. Can you give me a little context?
context.
Mm-hmm. Context. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
And just more specifically around that particular question around professional boundaries, I imagine there are probably several categories that it could come into. Number one, the one you mentioned, which is the scope of the role, right? Like how far out should you be expanding? Because it's one thing to be ambitious and helpful. It's another thing to be stepping on someone else's toes and doing work that really someone else should be doing. So there is that. There's also the communication, right? Like, for example, when you want to be communicated with, sometimes people send emails all different times of the day and are expecting people to answer all different times of the day. And you might say, look, I have some work-life boundaries where I'm committed to my family or whatever. And I try not to answer emails after 7 p.m., something like that. There could be ethical boundaries, right? Where you say, I'm a person of high integrity and I don't, step outside, that kind of thing. So boundaries, it's an interesting question. I just never heard it phrased that way, but
yeah.
It's really
I was like really thrown back, and I discussed it with my adult daughter, and she goes, I just get the feeling that they want you to be at work 24/7. And and she says, forget that job, Mom. Of course you can't forget all the jobs. But thank you. No, this sheds a lot of light on it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, and so in your daughter's interpretation, you can see, she's interpreting it, completely different. That's why it's so important to clarify, to try to get some understanding of what that question actually means, or any question in an interview.
Great. Okay, so anyone have us another question? Brad or Holly? You're new here, and Trina too. Welcome.
Well, mine is maybe just a very, I don't know, it feels like a very simple question, but in some of the jobs I've been applying for, I've been able to kind of hunt around and it'll say, oh, it reports to such and such a position. And then I can hop on LinkedIn and I can find their name.
Right.
And because I've been told, try to have a name. I'm so sorry to do this. Oh, my dad is in assisted living and I thought I just saw a call from him, but sorry, if they call again, I will just pause and excuse myself. I'm sorry. I know that's not very professional, but
please do what you need to do.
Right.
Going on at the same time this morning.
Of course, all good.
So yeah, I've been encouraged to put to find a name, to do as much research as you can, so you're sending it specifically to someone. And there's a job I was working on a resume for yesterday, and it doesn't have a reports to. And I was curious, I noticed, I don't necessarily know that the position is going to be reporting to the COO, but I noticed that they're also their COO position is open and a couple other leadership roles are open. So I wasn't really sure, if you can't find that, what's the next best?
And you're trying to find it. And I know why we would normally want you to find it, but why are you trying to find the hiring manager?
Well, that's a good question.
We actually have real advice on all of that, but I don't want to opine yet. I just want to hear what your challenge is, and then we'll give you other advice around that.
Well, I would prefer to try to make a direct connection
right.
with someone.
Yeah.
I think it just takes it a step closer to, because this is a job I'm really interested in, and I've spent probably too much time at this point with my perfectionism on the resume and the cover letter. And I really want, my husband keeps telling me there'll be hundreds of resumes that might come across their desk, and what is that thing that's going to help it stand out? So outside of trying to find a connection through LinkedIn, which I also have not been able to find that connection yet, I just want to take it a step closer to being personalized and to show them how much I've read through the job description, and I'm really working hard to connect.
Yeah.
Everything. It's not just like a frisbee that I'm tossing out there.
Right. Did you get this job through? Is this job posted on Indeed or some other major job board?
It's actually posted on their website, and it's an organization that I've been following for 4 years. They're a newer organization, and when I found out about them, they were very small, and now they've grown tremendously. They just got a huge grant, and so they're opening up more positions.
I see.
So I've been kind of like chasing them and following. Not
Okay,
chasing,
so this
but
is a different situation than I think most people are in. That's why I asked you, like, how'd you get them? In your case, yeah, you absolutely want to find whoever you can. In fact, it might just very well be just the CEO. Okay, that person's name obviously is out there. But for you that's okay. If you have been chasing them and you want to be thoughtful about it, that's okay. I'd write to them directly. Now, of course, if on LinkedIn, if that CEO happens to be second level connected to you, and you have a mutual first level, which you would have at least one mutual contact, leverage that person. Because you're trying to be really intentional about this. This is not a slip shot. Oh, let me just send my resume. You're chasing them. So I would absolutely try to find a mutual connection to the CEO, have a very thoughtful cover letter as to why and mention their growth and this and that, and show them that you are that you're pursuing them and you're interested in them. And oh, by the way, that they have this particular opening that you're looking to, and going after the CEOs can be a really great way in general to get yourself noticed, because when the CEO gets the resume, what do? They pass it over to the hiring manager, the HR person, that kind of thing. It's coming from the top. So that HR person, that hiring manager can say, okay, boss, sure, happy to look at that person. So you do have a connection to the CEO in general, not just in your situation. I would pursue it. Okay. But so what we call it is what you're doing. We're calling it finding an internal champion. Okay. Now that internal champion, so the way that works is either you find an external person, I know it's not internal, but an external champion who knows the internal person, or you find an internal person who knows the right person. Yeah. Okay. Either which way, you're trying to get yourself noticed. That's especially important when you are applying to a job through a job board. Because on the job boards, I know that's not your situation, but on the job boards, truly, like your husband said, hundreds of resumes. In fact, I will let you all know, and I've been trying to say this for the last few weeks, ever since I've kind of been, it's really come to my awareness as a recruiter. When you are applying to a job that is fully remote, which is the new phenom, okay? Yeah. Your competition is now through the roof. It used to be steep. Now it's Mount Everest, because now they have access to candidates all over the country. I've done several remote searches recently, one of which was notable to me. I happened to post an ad on LinkedIn, a job posting. I got 173 responses in 24 hours. I had to close the search. Yeah. 24 hours. Okay. It's that competitive. It's great for them. They've got access. Now, great for you too, in the sense that now you have access to all of these jobs all over the country. You're not limited to your local geography. That's the blessing of it, right? But do be aware that if you are applying to a job that is fully remote and you're applying on the job board, all bets are off. They are probably inundated with candidates just like that, which also means you need to move quickly, because they could be closing the search fast. Right? You don't even know it. You don't even know it. So I appreciate your perfectionism. You want to do it thoughtfully, right? But
I
these
own
jobs,
it. I own it.
yeah, but these jobs go fast. So you've got to be
Okay.
thoughtful and quick, thoughtful and quick, thoughtful and quick, all at the same time.
Okay. Okay.
Holly, is there anybody in your network or anybody else that you know that's aware of this organization or possibly has any links to this organization?
I went on LinkedIn. I have a friend that showed a connection with actually the COO, who must at this point be leaving. That was the only connection I could find. And so I messaged her and said, hey, I'm wondering if you know this person. I'm getting ready to apply for a job and I'd be really grateful for any sort of connection. And she wrote back and said, I don't really know her personally, and I know she's really hard to reach, but I'll try. I'll do my best to send a message, but don't expect anything because she's not really great about responding and getting back. So I went through and looked for connections and
Yeah, well, that's all you can do. I mean, and again,
yeah,
that's one of the other, I mean, there are people who are very active on LinkedIn and there's people who are on LinkedIn and, you know, look at it once a month. So,
Or
you know,
any, if at all.
or if at all, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
So even
yeah,
though they're on LinkedIn and they're electronically connected, sometimes it's a dead end, but all you can do is try and do your best.
yeah,
So that's fine. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just trying to give you other ideas and other ways to think about
Thank you.
ways to
Thank you.
connect with that organization.
Yeah.
Go, Tabby.
So just going to what you said, or mentioned about CEOs and I guess their availability, like to look at things on LinkedIn and whatnot. Do they, is it typical for them to have like some like virtual assistant or assistant that might like look at their account and get back to people?
It's a great question. I don't know whether executive assistants are checking the profile of the LinkedIn profile of their boss. I don't know that question, the answer to that question. Vern, any thoughts?
Well, I can give you one specific example. Somebody that, in fact, this is a CEO in Nigeria. And I've been coaching him on, you know, building his network. And he came up to me and he said, you're right, I need to reach out to more people. He said, I'm having my assistant, I don't know whether she's virtual or in the office or whatever, but she was going through LinkedIn and providing him 3 names of people who had things in common with him. And he was literally he said, I have a 3x2 strategy, 3 people that I don't know that I'm going to reach out to on LinkedIn. And then 2 people that I do know that I'm going to make sure I connect with each week to build his network, which was just, I mean, this was his strategy. I said, great. I said, do it. So he actually was having his assistant go into his LinkedIn account and then actually try to find matches, people that have things in common with him. So I think that's rare, but it is an example where somebody did it.
Speaking of that, Vern, some of our newer folks don't know that you are an expert in networking and you have a business called Contacts Count and really train people on the art of networking. Do you want to maybe even follow up on that 3x2 thing or anything else, any other networking tips? I know you've got a million of them, but anything maybe
I can take the
a
next
nugget
hour
to
or
share?
so. Yeah. Well, let me just, I would say again, the biggest tip that I would give people in terms of networking is one of the foundational principles of Contacts Count is we talk about what's your networker identity. And everyone has a networker identity. It could be, I hate networking. I never want to network. I've tried networking. It doesn't work for me. That's your networker identity. At the other end of the spectrum, what we try to get people to understand is to have a robust, positive networker identity. And every conversation that you have, you approach from what can I teach this other person about who I am as a person? And what can I learn about them? With the objective of the more you learn about them, the greater likelihood you might be able to help them. the more you teach other people about who you are and what you're all about, what you're passionate about, especially in the job search. This is something you're doing all the time. You're telling people you're in the job search, and you're communicating to them who you are, what your skills are, the type of work you're looking for. The more you do that, the greater likelihood they might be able to help you. And so the foundational principle is it's all about teaching and giving. And then we've actually got 8 competencies, and those competencies give people some specific ways to. A lot of people struggle when it comes to networking because they don't know what to say, how to say it, when to say it. You've all been at a networking event and somebody has said, what do you do? Typical question. And a lot of people give their title, their company, their organization, their professional association. I'm a VP of HR. I work for Amazon. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a CPA. And that's an opportunity that the person has missed, an opportunity to teach someone something about yourself. So I could tell you that I am the president and CEO of Contacts Count. Well, if you don't know what Contacts Count is, I haven't really, okay, that doesn't tell you much about me. If I say, I teach people the skills and behaviors, what do? I teach people the skills and behaviors of networking to build mutually beneficial relationships. I just finished a program with the MBA students at George Washington University School of Business, where they said the program literally changed their lives. That's a very different answer than I'm the president and CEO of Contacts Count.
Or I'm director of marketing, or I'm a
Or I'm
chief
director of
operating
marketing,
officer, I'm a whatever.
whatever.
Yeah.
So just those 2 sentences, and the 2 sentences, the first sentence is something you do really well, something you're an expert at. And the second sentence is simply some type of testimonial or example that validates that, yes, you really do have these skills. And here's an example of how I've used them, and I've been successfully using them.
Thanks, Vern. Do you happen to have a copy of the 8 steps that you could put in the chat? Is that accessible? Or is that on one of the slides that you and I did with Boomerworks?
I'm sure it's on one of the slides that we did, or let me see while we're going.
Yeah, while we're talking, yeah. See if you can find it, and if not, I'll try to look for it.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Brad?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My question revolves around how to field questions in an interview where the question can be very specific about a specific piece of background. And you know that you have transferable skills that apply to that, and you can kind of connect them to that, but I'm not sure that I handle those well. I kind of have an example, if that's okay. Someone asked in an interview this week about my experience implementing DEI programs, which I don't have any experience of like implementing a program in a professional environment, et cetera. So my answer was something along the lines of, I think that there are a lot of different ways in which you can implement DEI, and I have the B programs, but I think that in general it has to do with the culture and the climate of your organization, and these are some things that I've done to enhance DEI/B in a culture and climate situation in organizations. So I said a lot of, and then I kind of talked about principles. Like when you think about diversity, you can have a diverse staff, racially and ethnically and sexual orientation wise, and that can be part of diversity. But if in staff meetings only 10% of the people participate, that's not inclusion. If on professional learning for your staff, you just give everyone the same amount of money, that's not equity, because some people need different kinds of professional learning, et cetera. So I said there's a lot of different ways in which to approach and measure those successes. And those are the things that I would look at and I have done in the past. But it was, and then that person came back again, but what kind of programs have you used?
Right.
So obviously I didn't answer the question to their liking.
Right.
I didn't get a call back, unfortunately. I think it was because of the DEI/B question.
Yeah, was so strong. But look, at the end of the day, they want what they want, right? So on some level, you can only offer what you can offer. Okay, so on the one, that is what it is. That said, it was really interesting how you answered the question, right? So you answered in sort of two ways. You did share, it sounds like you shared some of your transferable skills. You also then gave some theory around what you believe is best practice. So here's the interesting, like the delicate dance with all of that, is that when an employer is asking for a question of describe a time, like, please tell me an experience. Well, they're looking for an experience. Sometimes they will say, please tell me your philosophy or your approach or your thinking around X. Now that's a really appropriate time to give theory. Okay. When going back to the experience question, here's what you can say. Okay. There's a really nice phrase. Let me tell you what I have done. Let me tell you what I have done. All right. It's honest. It's accurate. You're not saying, oh, yes, I've led a program. You're saying, well, let me tell you what I have done. So I've done this and I've been exposed to that. And I partnered with this department and I was involved in the other. You're not saying something that's untrue. You're literally saying, let me tell you what I have done. Because at the end of the day, sometimes when someone's asked you for experience, it's not necessarily have you done it exactly the way that we've done it, but do you have the true transferable skills, not just the soft skills, but like you've been connected to it enough where we can say, oh, okay, God, he gets it. He gets it. Let me tell you what I have done. Yeah. You're on mute, by the way.
That's great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And by the way, just not for nothing, I just want to stay on that particular topic for just a nanosecond. All right. As you know, we all know that DEI, DIB, J, all the letters has proliferated, right? The employment market. And everybody has a different lens. Every organization has a different lens. Ain't no two companies alike when it comes to those 3, 4, 5, 6 letters, okay? At all. A really good practice right now, when anybody asks you about your DEI anything, I would absolutely go back and ask a clarifying question. So, look, I have what to say about this. Would you, Mr. or Miss Employer, would you kindly share where your organization is right now? What are your challenges? What are you hoping to achieve? How do you see those letters? I really would like to speak authentically to your needs, but because we know that this is a very fluid topic, right, that really only in the last couple of years has just taken off like a rocket. I mean, we've been working on it for years now, but I mean, even the last couple of years, it's just gone to a whole new level and people are looking at it differently. I want to be thoughtful in my response. Can you please elaborate more on where you're at and what your aspirations are? Because when they ask you that, frankly, I think that was actually a little bit of an unfair question that they asked you. Because what in the world does overseeing a DEI program mean? What kind of program? An ERG, hiring practices, governance, what? It could have been, and your program, and even if you had run a program, it could have been very different than the kind of program that they would want you to run.
Yeah.
So clarification is important.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any thoughts, Vern?
No, my only thought whenever I, hear those letters is the best quote that it always, first thing that comes to my mind, diversity and inclusion and equity. Being invited to the dance is inclusion, or is diversity.
Diversity.
Being asked to dance is inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, it's you can
and equity is playing their music.
Yeah, right. I mean, just because you have diversity, doesn't mean that people are included or their careers are advancing. You have this diversity program. You hit to some of what Brad was saying. I mean, you've got to have tangible programs. You've got to have tangible outlets for people to actually, build their careers within that, and that's really should be the goal of any program that's along those lines.
Exactly. Thanks, Vern.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
I have one question, please.
Yes, Mohammed.
Yeah. Actually, I was just wondering that I'm looking forward to work in a call center as a representative agent, but I am having experience of only 1 month, and I was looking for those jobs who are very basics, like starting. But I really but every organization, every company is asking for 1 year. So of course I can't tell them like that I have experience from long. I put the long date, like the start date and the end date. So I have not that experience, and almost every company asks for that much experience, like 1 year. So please let me know how to start it, because whenever because there are no places, or no, you can say, there's no internship as well. Even in internships also they ask. But uh, I'm not sure how to like fit myself into any organization, because of course from for every start there's always a start. So I,
I think I caught some of what you were trying to say. I apologize. Didn't understand everything. I'm gathering that you are looking for an entry level role, but people are
yeah,
requiring you to have at least a year of experience.
right, yes, that's right, you got it right.
Right. So I will share this, that in general, whenever an early career professional, particularly, recent college grads, for example, people who are just very, very new to the workforce, this has always been a challenge, because most employers do want at least a year or two of experience, because they don't want to take a risk. It is the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges in the job market that we don't often talk about. It's true. People talk about discrimination in age on the senior side, but on the junior side, it's just as much of a problem. And it's really just, it comes down to whether an employer is flexible. You would want to be looking for jobs where they say 0 to 1 year of experience, not where it says 1 to 2 years, but where it says 0 to 1 year. There has to be the 0 there. That means that they are very open to someone with basically no experience, and they're willing to train. That's kind of my best advice on that, other than trying to, you could possibly do volunteer work in that sector to get a little bit more experience and put that on your resume. You can, if there's any certifications that you can get that may help with the experience, possibly. It's not really experience, it's education.
Yeah.
But those are kind of the couple things I would suggest.
So is it okay if I just apply for 1 year experience? Like I don't have one experience, but if it's like for the entry level.
You can always apply. You just have to manage your expectations, because they may not choose you. I mean, you're welcome to apply. You never know that maybe they'll look at your background, and even though they've asked for 1 year, they might be flexible because of something else that you have in your resume. So you can apply.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. And the other thing is, actually, I am having low vision problem, due to which many organizations didn't accept me. So should I mention it in my resume, or at what stage I must tell?
At what stage? This is a tricky one. Vern, do you want to address the ADA side of this? Yeah, he
I
has
think-
low vision issues, and he's wondering when to mention that.
Um,
And by the way, Mohammed, as I recall, you're in Canada, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so you have different laws than we do here in the States. So in fact, they're actually, I think, a little bit more progressive than what we have, but I'm not quite sure. Vern, what would you recommend in terms of?
well, I wouldn't recommend mentioning it, in the very first interview. I mean, the best time or the appropriate time to ask that question is in the interviewing process. Once you've gained some traction, so you've had the first interview, they've invited you back for the second interview, you have a sense that they're really considering you as a candidate. I mean, at some point you need to bring that up, because that is an ADA type situation.
Okay.
And you bring it up as you're getting closer to the offer. The other thing, Mohammed, just going back to your earlier question, do you have a social group of friends who are your age and that are in entry level jobs that might keep you aware of opportunities that they think might be open, and opportunities that you might apply for?
No, actually, I am newly arrived here, so like I am
Okay.
having, they are all set. Like no one among them is at entry level. Like I'm at an entry level. Yeah.
Well, but even though they're not at entry level, if they're working for an organization, as Shira said earlier, someone who's working for an organization they could become your internal champion. They could support your, your application, your recommendation for an entry-level job in that organization, because they would say, I know Mohammed, I know he's, a good person, I know he's a hard worker.
Yes.
That would certainly help
That
you.
helps. That
Yeah.
helps a lot. Look, I remember when my first 2 internships when I was a teenager came through my father. My father knew 2 colleagues, right? 2 people in his network who had businesses. One of which happened to be a journalist of all things at USA Today. I got an internship at USA Today when I was 19 years old because my father knew somebody, right? People know people. You just never know. So, when to Vern's point, if you've got friends who are older, more experienced, who work for certain companies, you can ask them if their company has an entry-level position that you could apply for, and then they can refer you in because they
Oh,
know you
oh,
and they
oh,
trust you.
thanks a lot, both of you. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, Tabi, and then Sandra. Oh, Tabi, do you not have a question anymore?
Oh, I was just lowering the hand.
Oh, you were looking at your hands.
so-
Okay. All right.
So,
Sandra. Sorry.
based on what Mohammed was saying, in terms of experience, would it help if you tell the employer that you're willing to learn, like whatever it is that they're asking?
Well, you're absolutely. The question more is on your resume. You can't really say that on your resume. Like there's no real place to do.
Right.
You can say that in an interview.
Interview.
Oh,
interview,
sure. If an
right.
employer says, hey, do you have experience in X? And you legitimately don't have any, say, wow, you know what? I would be excited to learn more about that particular skill. If there's
maybe you don't have like experience in the field that you're applying to. Maybe you're looking for an entry position, but there's something that piques their interest. about
it's
the
a little
resume, and
it's a little tricky, especially if you're more seasoned. When you're a recent
Mhm.
college grad, or even if you don't have a degree, if you're just an entry-level employee, right? You're new to the workforce. If you're brand new to the workforce and you have very, very little experience, it's a lot easier to make the case to kind of go after almost any job, right? Because you're just very moldable. Once you
Yeah.
have a lot of experience, then employers find that to be a little bit risky. I'm not saying it's impossible. People do make career changes all the time, but understand that if you've been working for a while and you've achieved a certain level of success and they're trying to jump down, the employer thinks that's a flight risk because they say, oh, well, either he doesn't have the experience, or they're saying to themselves, oh, well, he thinks he wants to do this, but does he really want to do this? And why would he want to take such an entry-level role? It's a lot less salary, less responsibility. They're going to be probably looking more closely at people who are really legitimately at that level. Again, it is possible to make the shift, but if you're trying to do that, you need to do a lot of networking. Networking is one of the best ways to get yourself noticed if you're trying to make a career shift, because then somebody can vouch for you and say, look, I talked to Tabi, I know him, he's somebody who's really passionate about this. Would you give him a shot? That is a much better technique than just submitting your resume, because then they don't know you. You're just a piece of paper.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. Thank you both. All right, Sandra. You're on mute.
Yes. Yes, I had 2 things just for Mohammed, and I'm not sure if you considered this or mentioned it earlier. So like Shira said, yes, 0 to 1 years if you don't have that required experience. And then if there is an internship, even if it's unpaid, if it's a couple months or more, you may want to consider referencing that in your application or cover letter. It's just a thought.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I was looking for that also. Like, I was not interested in pay, of course, for right now, but more is to gain experience and to put in my resume. So I was looking for that also. That I do call center job as a volunteer. So, but I think in volunteer there is no internship. Like, there's no internship or no. It's yeah, it's on contract base, but I think contract based jobs also require some experience, like at least 1 year.
I see.
So
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Thank you.
Mary?
But
Oh, I'm sorry, Sarah, did you have an actual question?
yes, the other question I had was, So there's, in one of the LinkedIn groups that I participate in, there was an individual who posted that they had an opening in their group. So I'm not connected to this person. So the question I have, Sherry, is should I email this person or message them? The last choice, of course, is to go ahead and connect. So he said, hey, I'm going to have this opening. Reach out to me, basically, because it's not posted yet. But like I said, I don't know this person. So just your thoughts on what
So
would be the best.
so in the make sure I understand, in the networking group, your friend, let's call your friend John, okay? So John said that Frank has an opening.
John said, I'm at this company and, I'm going to be moving on. So basically my role is going to be opening up, reach out to me.
Oh, but wait, I'm confused. John is in your networking group?
It's on a LinkedIn group. I'm sorry. Let me
LinkedIn
clarify my
group.
mistake.
Oh, sorry. Okay, got it. A LinkedIn group. Understood. So it's just, he just sort of posted it to the whole LinkedIn group. Fine. Yeah, so your question is, should you reach out to John?
And again, maybe I'm overthinking it. Should I email John? Should I message him or should I do a connection request?
Oh, okay. You want to reach out. You just want to know the channel, the best channel. Got it. Okay. It wasn't a whether to, it was a how to. Oh, yeah. So did he put his email?
No, he did not.
Okay. So I would definitely, yeah. So in this case, send him a connection request. Now, if you have premium, you could send him an email. Okay. But the other thing too is he's in the group, right? So you could send him a connection request, and then in the chat, you could, I mean, I realize it's public, okay, but you could say, hey, John, just alerting you. If you meaning you can send the connection request if he hasn't responded in a couple of days, because people just don't necessarily. You could say, hey, just alerting you that I sent a connection request, would love to hear more. Of course, once he hopefully accepts your request, then you'll have access hopefully to his email, because it'll be in the contact info section. Did you know that?
Right. I looked on LinkedIn and I saw his email and I was like, well, Sandra, you can just go ahead and email him there.
Oh, wait, you're saying on his LinkedIn profile, he has his email address, like publicly?
Correct.
Oh,
Yes.
well, that's fantastic. All bets are off. Go email him.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you put his email there, that means he wants the world to, oh, he's being open about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for sure. Oh yeah, go direct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Definitely. Fern?
I was gonna say, yeah, it's simple. I mean, he said he's leaving. There's a job opening. He
Right,
shared it with the
like-
group. You're part of the group. Get in touch with him, and if you've got
Absolutely.
his email,
Straight up.
I'm interested. Tell me more.
Very,
So-
very simple. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And by the way, does everybody know that when you are first level connected to someone, anybody, you will usually have access to their email address in the contact info section. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Can you raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Not everybody does. Holly or Tavi, do you know what I mean? All right, so I'm gonna just do a 1 second training here. That's very helpful. I'm gonna just share my screen. This is a really, really helpful tool. Okay, so if you put in, I'm gonna put in Vern, okay? So Vern and I are first level connected. I'm gonna open Vern's profile. And I'm gonna go to the contact info button. And you see here, his email address pops up. Now, 98 times out of 100, the email address will be there. 2 times out of 100, the person is so private that they just eliminated and they don't even want even their first level contacts to have their email address. That's very, very rare. But usually it's just a great way to just connect with anybody. Maybe, you just want to reach a colleague. I don't have their email address. Go to LinkedIn. And if you're first level, it's often here. Okay. So I just wanted to share that with you. Okay. Mary?
Hi, thank you. At the end of the interview, this was an in-person interview. She asked me if I had any questions. So I did have some questions. And then she said, it was 2 people. She said, well, Mary, if you would like, and to get a feel for what the position and what you would be doing on the job, I can set up a day or maybe 2 days to shadow one of our employee and go with them and shadow them for the day. And this would give you a good feel of the job. And we would need you, obviously, to sign a disclosure for confidentiality. And we would not be able to compensate you for this. Would you like me to set this up? Well, when she said we would not be able to compensate you for this, I was really thrown back. I didn't think about it though at the moment. I just said, yeah, that would be really good, because for me, at my level, I would like to know what I'm doing on a daily basis, because this is the end of my career. But I was thrown back on the fact that they would not be able to compensate me and I would be there for 1 or 2 days. How would you handle that? Should that, obviously it may come back, through email, because this was just yesterday. I want to be compensated for that. I don't want to go there and spend the whole day. And how would you handle that? How do you feel about that? What should I do? Anybody have any questions on that?
Yeah, so, and I'm sorry, I was distracted for a second. I had to handle something personally. Did you say that, so this 1 or 2 days, is it, why did they need you there? Is it for training purposes?
To shadow someone to see if I really want
The
this
job.
position.
I
If I really think this would be a good fit for
I
me.
understand. Yeah, it's almost like an extended interview, but not exactly an interview, but it's part of the interview process for you to see if you want to do.
I guess you could look at it that
It
way. I
is.
never
I mean,
thought of it.
that's how they're viewing it, which is why they're not compensating you for it. Because you're not working, you are spending time, but you're not working. It's a delicate one. I have seen people do that before. Look, it's a personal choice, right? It really is. I would say this, if it's a job that you really, really want, your mindset could be, wow, this is a great opportunity for me to test the waters and try the job out for size to see if I actually want to do the work. And that could be worth it to you, because they're not asking you to do something. They're giving you an opportunity to test the job out. So if you see it that way, that's a benefit to you. That might be worth the free time, right? Because you're getting something out of it more than even they are. You're saying, is this, because look, how often do you actually get to do that?
Yeah.
Normally you interview for a job once, twice, maybe 3 times. And then what happens? You have to hope and pray that it actually is what you want. Whereas if you're being given an opportunity to shadow them for a day, you're getting to experience the role. That's only benefit to you.
That is a good way to look at it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I was like taken
Yeah.
back, like, what, you expect me to be
No,
there the whole
no,
day?
it's more of a get to. It's a
Yeah.
get, it's not a have to, it's a get to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
That I feel disconnected now. I feel
Okay.
better.
Good.
Yeah. Thank
Mary,
you.
I would absolutely, support everything Shira just said. Oh my God, this is a chance to really see the job. I mean, you all of you have been through the interview process and you never really see the job until you get the offer, until you work in, until you start doing the job. And then sometimes you're surprised. Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, because I can definitely see, Vern, the turnover, and they're really concerned about it. And, it was like a 2-hour interview of questions.
Yeah.
And then I had a written exam.
Yeah.
So
again, think about the fact that the other job that you had the offer, you decided not to take. This is an opportunity for you to experience the job and help you decide, yes, this is really something I want to take, or no, it's not. And it's better to make that decision now than accept the job and then get into the job and find out you don't want it. So
beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. I feel so much better. I feel like today I'm going to email her and say, I would really welcome that opportunity. But at first I thought, how did they expect me to be there and the whole day and I'm not getting anything, so,
well,
but
It's
yeah.
all mindset.
And don't just expect you to be there as you're shadowing. I would certainly ask people questions and how, when you see something, how does this work? And, what are, if they run into a problem, is this a common problem and how do they handle it? I mean, you can learn so much about the job. And
Yeah.
again, as you're doing that, you're either going to feel, oh, wow, this is something I could see myself doing, or, oh, my Lord, this is not something I want to do.
Yeah,
So-
she already put the parameters and their boundaries, I guess. She said during the shadowing time, you're not allowed to ask any questions. You just observe. But
Okay.
after
After?
we're done, then you
Okay.
can ask all the questions you want, which was, I
Maybe
thought,
come with
kind
a
of
notebook, right?
interesting.
And write
I
notes
was
as
just
you're
gonna say,
watching.
right-
That's a good idea, Shira.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take your
Thank you.
questions
This
out.
is good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Sure.
Because I really was stuck on that. I really was stuck on that particular, and I shared it with my daughter, and she goes, forget it, you're not going there. Of course, this is somebody that's graduating next week from U of A. So,
Yeah.
get
different
you. I
concept.
guess it would be different, frankly, Mary, it would be different if they were asking you to do work.
Yeah.
That's different. That's different.
Very true.
Very
Thank you. Oh my God, you
Just-
wouldn't believe how much lighter I feel.
Good.
Thank you. Yes,
You're
thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, Ty?
On a Zoom call, when you're interviewing, is it a good or bad idea to have a virtual background with the company's logos? Is there any issues with that? Does that create any type of impression?
So that's interesting, create a virtual background with the company's logo of the person, of the company you're interviewing with? I've never
Yes.
seen anybody do that. I appreciate the creativity of that. I'm not quite sure how they would feel. Because it almost might make them feel like as if you're working there already. I mean, I get it. It's subtle. I've seen people do that when, like, during the presentation, let's say they're presenting an idea during the interview. I've seen them absolutely put the logo, on the front cover. This is a whole new world. I've never heard anybody make that suggestion. Look, you could try, and you can see their, seriously, you can see their reaction. Say, hey, I tried this, and I hope you don't mind. I just thought I wanted to show you how interested I am in the role. They might laugh and say, wow, that's really proactive of you. I don't know. That's a good one.
And
I was thinking about, go ahead,
the
Vernon.
other end of the spectrum is going, wow, that's pretty aggressive. He really
Right,
thinks it works here already, but you don't know that. You
It's
don't
a
know which
risk.
way-
It could pay off. It could not. I mean, that's the thing about risks. So you could try.
Okay, thank
Try
you.
once, see what happens. I mean,
And then let us
but
know.
you'd obviously have to say something. You don't just want to say, oh, hello, and then here's the background. Say, hey, as you can see, I just wanted to show you how interested I am. I actually put your logo up here. I mean, so
Okay, great idea.
Eric.
Yeah, so like I say, I'm starting my job on Monday. I was wondering, what are there any the first 90-day tips or whatever you have? Because I hear those are the crucial times.
Absolutely. I think we all have a lot of them. Vern does. Sandra, by the way, for those of you who don't know, comes from an HR background, so she's got, I know, tips as well. But maybe we just go, the three of us, kind of just do some little round robins. I'll give one. One is listen and learn before acting. Do not be a bull in the china shop. Your goal is to learn how they do things before you make any suggestions about how people could do things differently. Observe, ask questions, take notes, be thoughtful. Your job is to absorb everything. You never want to come in there and think like you know it all, like, oh, I'm going to change things. Listen and learn. That's one tip. Vern or Sandra?
Sandra, you go first because I'm looking for something.
Okay, all right. Eric, two thoughts came to mind. Initially, Kevin Conifee, he has a document that he shares with job searchers about the first 90 days. If you email him, he can.
Yeah, I
send
know.
that
I
out.
have it. His first 90 days document. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing
He's
that
in sales. That's his document.
okay, that was
And
just
I
one
don't
that-
know enough about the company to make one.
Oh, okay. And I'm not necessarily saying that you would want to make them. That's just what came to my mind, because it would depend on the level that role it is and the functions that you were hired to do. But what really is, I find is most important would be the communication with your manager, okay? So ask, if they don't volunteer, or we're going to be meeting every week, or even if they don't, I find it's really important for the employee, because the managers get so busy, is to just reach out, and it could be a 10-minute call or whatever is necessary, but at least in the beginning, to reach out weekly and find out how you're doing. This is what I've accomplished this week. What are your thoughts? Or have you had the opportunity to observe my code? Or do you have any recommendations? Because I worked in organizations where some managers are so diligent, and it's awesome. They set aside time on their calendar every week to talk to every person on their team. But again, that depends on the company and the culture. But regular weekly communication at a minimum I think is
And
awesome.
along those lines,
Well, the company culture is currently in the transition period. Last year, the company I'm working for is a company inside of a company now, because they were just acquired by another for the main company. So I'm working for a GovCIO, which just acquired the company I am working for, which used to be Salient CRGT. So I'm working for the Salient CRGT team that is now GovCIO. And so I guess we got a merging of cultures now.
Mhm.
On top of that, a lot of people are working remote.
But yeah, it's essential to reach back to your lead, could be a senior developer, whoever it is, but weekly tag ups or at a minimum. That's my thought. Yeah.
Yeah, and also ask along those lines, how does your boss want to be communicated with, right? So, right, how everything from the timing to the channel, does your boss more of a verbal person? They want to, have a chat with you. Do they like Slack? Do they want you to email this? And what kind of report out do they want? Do they want like a laundry list of tasks that you've done that week? Or do they want a high level summary? Or do they just want you to come to them with, like, what kind of communication style do they prefer?
And Eric, the one reference I would suggest to you is a book by Michael Watkins called The First 90 Days. And what I've been trying to search for is I have kind of a summary somewhere of it. And here's the first 5 questions you should ask your boss within the first 90 days and get clarity around these things. But for some reason, I can't find my summary. I was going to post it in the chat. If I do, I'll make sure that can you send me your email address, Eric, or put it in the
Okay,
chat?
yeah.
And I'll send it to you. And sure, I'll send it to you, and you might be able to share it with the group. So you don't have to read the whole book, but here's kind of the summary. And I mean, it's a great book if you're really starting a job. It's a book to read over first 90 days. But the most important questions to ask. And what you said about culture, to me, that sounds like it's a pretty fluid situation, and you're just going to have to roll with the punches there, because if you got 2 companies that are kind of merging and they haven't quite figured it out yet, and
I have a suggestion to add based on my experiences is before you ask the question, do your research if there are manuals or whatever. So when you go to your supervisor, your team lead, you can say, here's what I've been thinking. There's my suggestion. Is this the direction you want me to go, so that they know that you looked into it and just didn't come to them with a problem.
Right. Always a good suggestion, Ty, right? Don't come with a problem, come with the problem plus the solution.
Yeah.
Great. All right, another question before we wrap up? Trina, you've been quiet today. Any questions on your side?
Oh, actually, good morning, everyone. I actually put it in the chat. I did learn something important today about the shadowing from Mary, which I was like you, Mary, when you said, well, I'm not going to be paid, because where I come from, the training process, you get a different rate. You don't get your regular rate, but you at least get, a training rate. But like Shira putting out, you're not actually working. So my question is, would you put that shadow experience on your resume, maybe under volunteering?
Oh, the shadow kind of work that Mary.
The
talked
shadow
about.
experience, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't, because that's not really experience. That's just more of like a day where she's just getting to learn about a company. I'd say that if it were an actual apprenticeship of some sort, where she was being trained and, spent time and was working, then she or you, whoever could put that on a resume. No, I wouldn't do it just for just a day-long shadow.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Right, any other questions?
I did have a quick question from the presentation yesterday on knowing your worth.
Oh, sure. So just so you know, everyone, Trina was on a separate call with me yesterday. I run an organization called a community service called Boomer Works. We empower professionals age 50 plus to re-career into self-employment. So Trina, just so you know, this is just a job search discussion. We don't actually talk about self-employment, but if you had a quick question, I'm happy to answer it if it's appropriate for this group. So feel free to ask the question.
Oh, I just was wondering if I could get the handout, that's all.
Oh, there actually wasn't any that I know of. She was just doing, it was just an open Q&A, unless there was a handout I missed.
I think she referenced that I could find, I had a question.
Oh, it
and
was
she
just,
referenced it would be in the.
yeah, it was on her website, tinahighland.com.
Yeah, I went there
TINA.
and I could, and it asked you to send your email, but
Yeah,
when
exactly.
I didn't get it.
If you put your
Yeah.
email in, you're supposed to get the download. But
And
if
I
you,
didn't get it.
I would just
Mhm.
write to her directly if you weren't able to access it, she might be able to help you.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so any other questions? All right, I think we're good. So for those of you who want to stay on the call, I'm going to offer a short prayer call at the end of this. For everybody else, feel free to join us next week for our next session of Higher Moment Mastermind. All right, have a blessed day, everyone.